I am the power that negates, and rightly so, for all souls that come to be deserve to perish wretchedly. To a better nothing would begin in that pathetic world. Thus everything, mortals' terms, their sins, destructions, and evil will bow before me, and I will be its representation. For that is my proper form, and through that desire my future hell will conform. They will name their terms, and I'll name my price. In the infernal annals of Beta, there are few events so daring, so cataclysmic, and so utterly doomed as the reckoning of hell. It was an act of treachery and ambition, unlike any before or since. A failed uprising that reshaped the hierarchy of the 9 hells and left scars upon the very layers of its creation. Known in ancient tomes in Candlekeep as the Reckoning, or more formally the Reckoning of Hell, this rebellion was a declaration of war against the Lord of Nessus himself, Asmodeus, the undisputed ruler of the 9 hells. The architects of the rebellion were some of the most cunning minds in existence. Chief among them was Mephistopheles, the Archdevil of Cania, whose ambition burned hotter than his realm's eternal frost. He was a devil of paradoxes, a lord of cold and flame, a schemer whose arrogance matched his intellect. Tired of Asmodeus's shadow falling across his every plot, Mephistopheles sought to bring about the end of the Lord of the Ninth through careful and strategic betrayals. Thus began his pilgrimage across the layers of hell, one that would bind 4 archdevils into an alliance of fire and frost, steel and coin. Mephistopheles' first destination was Minauros, the 3rd layer of Baator, a land drowned in endless mire and sinking corruption. It was here that Mammon ruled, his serpentine body coiled within his palace of rotting opulence. Mammon, Lord of Greed, was a creature who measured all things, allegiance, betrayal, even damnation itself, by the weight of gold and the promise of a future gain. Mephistopheles found him atop a throne of rusted crowns and shattered jewels, muttering to himself about debts long paid and profits never rendered. The pact offered to Mammon was simple: support in overthrowing Asmodeus, and in return, unrestricted dominion over infernal trade and tribute. Mammon's answer was not immediate. He slithered through clauses, chewed on contingencies, and finally hissed his assent, not out of loyalty to Mephistopheles, but because he believed he could profit most from the collapse of the current order. The next step took Mephistopheles to Dis, the 2nd layer of Baator, where the Iron City spread like a cancer across the scorched land. At its heart loomed the Iron Tower, home to Dispata, the Iron Duke. Dispata was a devil so cautious that even his thoughts seemed forged in lead and locked behind vault doors. It was said that to reach him, one had to pass through 100 gates and 1,000 traps. Mephistopheles, however, brought something that even Dispata could not ignore: a threat to stability posed by Asmodeus's unchecked power. To Dispata, the Reckoning was an opportunity to reshape the rigid lattice of Hell's hierarchy into something more secure, under his careful oversight, of course. After a long debate, the Iron Duke agreed to join, but unlike Mammon, Dispata offered no promises of loyalty, only the assurance that he would act in whatever way best protected his tower and his city. Despite their alliance, there was also a degree of competition and envy between them, particularly regarding arcane knowledge and secrets. Last came Geryon, Lord of Stygia, the 5th layer of Baator, a realm of black ice, blizzards, and howling winds. It was a land that mirrored its master's brutal simplicity. Geryon was a warrior king, a beast of muscle and wrath who had little taste for politics or pretense. Where other archdevils schemed through lies and layered pacts, Geryon believed in strength, in crushing one's enemies, underfoot and hearing the ice crack beneath them. Mephistopheles came to him not with promises of riches or safeguards, but with a single vow: war. Endless wars, bloodied and glorious, fought not against the mindless hordes of the abyss, but against other archdevils and the legions of Nessus itself. Geryon, though wary, was stirred. The thought of unleashing his fury across the layers, of fighting without end, without restraint, was intoxicating. Thus, the first faction of the reckoning was born: Mephistopheles, Mammon, Dispater, and Geryon. Each joined for reasons of their own, some for profit, some for control, and others for blood. But together they formed a cabal that sought to unseat the Prince of Nessus and take dominion of hell into their own devilish hands. Yet they were not the only ones stirred to ambition. Beelzebul, the fallen angel of lies and rot, caught wind of Mephistopheles' movements. Rather than join, he rallied his own allies. Zariel, still newly fallen and drunk on the glories of war. Belial, the decadent lord of pain and politics. And Moloch, the militant tyrant who had grown tired of serving beneath the heel of others. 2 factions, 8 archdevils. And at the center of their spiral of treachery, one figure stood alone: Asmodeus, watching, waiting, smiling. In the deepening darkness of the 9 hells, ambition blazed hotter than any infernal fire, and soon the air was thick with ash and treachery. The reckoning, which had begun as whispered alliances and veiled pacts, erupted into open war. A cataclysm of blood and betrayal that thundered through each of the 9 layers of Bator. It began with a lie. Zariel, once the fiery angel of battle, and now a warlord twisted by hellfire, mustered a massive legion. Rumors spread like wildfire that her force was bound for the abyss, a noble campaign against the demons of the Blood War. Even Asmodeus allowed the troop movement to proceed, trusting his archdevil's thirst for demon blood. But Zariel had no intention of descending into the abyss. In a sudden, brutal turn, her armies swept down upon Dis. Infernal horns echoed through the iron towers of the City of Pain as devils, loyal to Dispater, found themselves overwhelmed. Flame and steel clashed in the courtyards of the Iron Tower, and the skies of the second layer wept molten iron. The Iron Duke, ever vigilant, vanished into his fortress's deepest defences, where even Zariel's wrath could not reach him. But the blow had been struck. The war had now begun. Even as Dis burned, Moloch and Belial launched a 2-pronged assault on Stygia, seeking to remove Geryon from the Fiendish board and secure a critical junction between layers. Their combined legions surged across the frozen plains, towers of ice shattering beneath Baylor-wrought siege engines, and legions clad in barbed armor. But what they found was not a craven devil awaiting defeat. Geryon, the Beast King of the 5th layer, rose in full fury. Ice cracked beneath his tread as he waded into battle, horns lowered, teeth bared. For days, the fighting raged. Cold and fire clashing. Columns of infernal blood freezing mid-air, then shattering in a gory rain of devilish pact magic. Even so, the attackers pressed onward. Malbolg and Avernus threw their strength behind the campaign, convinced that Geryon's stubbornness would collapse under the weight of combined might. They were wrong, but the battle dragged on, giving Mephistopheles the opening he sought. With Zariel tied up in Dis and Geryon under siege, Mephistopheles struck. His armies, swift, swept into Maladomini, the 7th layer ruled by Beelzebul, the Lord of Lies and Prince of Filth. Maladomini was a ruin even before war touched it, a wasteland of collapsing cities and poisoned air. But now, it became a furnace of violence. Mephistopheles unleashed his Canian legions, devils clad in glacial armor and bearing infernal flame, who now set entire districts ablaze with hellfire. Beelzebul, pride wounded and plans unraveling, called desperately for reinforcements. But none came. The archdevils were too entangled, their forces too thin. Meanwhile, Mammon, ever the opportunist, performed a brilliant reversal. He lifted his support from Zariel's siege and sent his legions to reinforce Disparta. The attack on Dis faltered. Zariel, surrounded and isolated, was forced to withdraw, her fury echoing across the layers like a falling star. As the tide turned, both factions sensed victory. Baalzebul, bloodied but not broken, poured what remained of his armies into Maladomini. Mephistopheles met him with equal force. Two great hosts of the nine hells clashed, their banners crimson and black, their blades screaming with fiendish magic. The skies split with lightning. The hells beneath the ruined cities fractured and burned, even worse than their usual degradations. Victory seemed within reach. But then came the signal. From atop the glaciers of Stygia, Larian lifted his great horn and let out a thunderous call. It was not a command of rallying, nor a cry of desperation. It was the voice of betrayal. For Larian had never truly joined Mephistopheles. While he had entertained the rebellion, he had never ceased to serve the Lord of Nessus. Behind the battle lines, thousands of pit fiends, generals and commanders entrusted by both sides, suddenly turned on their own forces. Bound by ancient oaths to Nessus and secretly aligned with Larian, they tore through their confused and outnumbered hosts. The fields of Maladomini became oceans of blood. Devils fought devils with no understanding of why their own commanders now struck them down. No side was spared. Even the victorious turned to ash beneath raining meteors of infernal magic. Asmodeus's wrath was unleashed in full through the traitorous generals who had always been his. When the fires died down, silence reigned. The rebellion was shattered. Its leaders, once titans of ambition, were cast down or punished. Mephistopheles vanished for a time, licking his wounds in the frozen darkness of Caenia. Mammon's treasures were seized. Disparta, ever cautious, closed the gates of Dis so tightly that none but his most trusted were allowed entry. Zariel, though not yet fallen entirely, would not be trusted for some time. And Larian, well, Larian was rewarded, but not as he expected, for even loyalty in hell comes with a cost. When the last screams faded into silence and the rivers of blood turned to stone, only one figure stood untouched amid the ruin: Asmodeus, unburned, unchallenged, unbowed. The Lord of Nessus emerged from the reckoning elevated, his supremacy no longer a matter of dogma or fear, but one of irrefutable, cosmic truth. The rebellion had failed spectacularly, and in its failure, it cemented Asmodeus's dominion over all Bartor. The price for treason was steep, but, as always in the hells, it was calculated. Baalzebul, once the proud and silver-tongued Lord of Lies, who had whispered treachery into the ears of kings and archdevils alike, suffered the most humiliating fate. As the one who had most brazenly attempted to usurp the throne of Nessus, his punishment was personal. Before the assembled archdevils, Asmodeus stripped Baalzebul of his devilish shape. With a flick of the ruby rod, the Prince of Filth was transformed. His towering form melted and sloughed into a grotesque, worm-like creature, bloated and oozing, forced to slither through his own ruined domain. Though he retained his station in name, his shame was absolute. His once grand palaces of rotting stone now echoed only with the whispering mockery of lesser devils. His punishment was an eternal degradation. Mammon, the miser of Menauros, saw the tides turning long before the final battle was lost. Ever the survivor, he abandoned his allies in the final hours of the war and slithered into Nessus under a banner of surrender. Before the throne of Nessus, he laid his hoarded treasures bare and grovelled before the one he had sought to betray. Asmodeus spared him, but his legacy was shattered. The other archdevils viewed him with unrelenting suspicion. His name became synonymous with cowardice. His contracts were scrutinized. His envoys were mocked. Though Mammon remained Lord of Minoros, he ruled a lair whose wealth was a vault of poisoned coins and hollowed promises. And then there was Mephistopheles. It was he who had kindled the fire of the reckoning, who had whispered rebellion into the ears of 3 archdevils and orchestrated the first strikes. Of all the conspirators, his guilt was the most blatant. And yet, he was spared. Not cursed like Beelzebul, not publicly shamed like Mammon, not overthrown like Moloch, nor cast into paranoia like Dispata. Mephistopheles, the Lord of Carnia, retained his throne and his icy confidence. Many wondered why. Some claimed he had struck a secret bargain with Asmodeus before the war even began. Others whispered that Asmodeus admired his cunning or feared his power. Perhaps it was all part of a longer game. Perhaps the rebellion had been allowed to happen, an elaborate purge orchestrated by Asmodeus himself, with Mephistopheles as an unwitting pawn or a willing accomplice. Whatever the truth, Mephistopheles survived, and in Cania, the frozen winds howled with laughter. Mephistopheles holds court within Cania, and just like the frigid land of Stygia above, it is a bitterly cold realm of glaciers and howling ice storms. Within his court, ice devils make up his retinue. Operating from his great tower, the icy citadel of Mephistar, he conducts a never-ending series of experiments that expand his understanding of arcane magic and of the planes of existence. Mephistopheles keeps his realm churning with punishing storms, and while some visitors make their way to Cania, he doesn't entertain them with any compassion. Asmodeus has charged him with maintaining a stout security force around Nessus. Travelers that make their way into Cania are more often than not killed by the frigid land within seconds of arrival. As he is the foremost wizard in the Hells, Mephistopheles suffers nothing that would compromise his intellectual focus. He hates distractions and allows only particular devils to speak to him without first being spoken to. Due to this lack of tolerance, he has been known to disintegrate minions for the smallest transgressions, and sometimes carries out an execution simply because he suspected that a devil was about to do something that broke his concentration. As the Wizard of the Hells, he's able to devote almost all his time to his research, thanks to the loyalty of Hutijin, his top lieutenant. Within his 8th layer, he has arranged the land as an enormous laboratory. Mephistopheles and his devotees prefer to conduct their studies in a wasteland where they can unleash gouts of arcane energy without destroying anything that the land of hell would require for the Blood War. Experiments involving new spells, new magical items, and other innovations for the infernal arsenal regularly cause localized cataclysms in Cania. This activity attracts numerous spies despite the inhospitable environment. Merely observing Mephistopheles' disciples at work can provide insights into the nature of their research and the discoveries they have made. His court is constantly alert for agents from Dis, since it greatly pains Dispata that Mephistopheles might come across a scrap of information he doesn't possess. A number of renowned archmages, including Mordenkainen, have at times found their way into this realm on a search for forgotten lore, or in the hope of confirming a theory of arcane magic. As the keeper of arcane souls, Mephistopheles and his followers specialize in luring wizards, sages and scribes into making compacts with the 9 hells. Of all the lords of the 9, he has the lowest quotas, but the highest standards. He harvests the souls of skilled wizards and cunning sages, exactly the sort of travelers he requires for his research. Curiosity and ambition are motivating factors that entice such souls into his service. Often, a mage who gets an opportunity to join the cause of Mephistopheles sees that invitation as proof of one's ascensions to greatness. The downside to this arrangement is the true nature of the Lord of the Eighth, which is apparent only after a new contract is signed. He can be charming when he recruits a soul directly, and his agents are careful to avoid making any promises about his actions or attitudes. But once a soul arrives in the Nine Hells to serve him, it invariably faces decades of routine work or tedious study. Thus, few who join his table of arcanists remain happy with their decision, but they would be well advised not to show any discontent, as he fills his contracts with cleverly worded clauses that allow him to annihilate any of his servants with a word. Libraries and other realms with arcane knowledge are recorded or contained within Cania, mainly to ensure that a single disastrous experiment at one location can't destroy the evidence of all the work conducted at other sites. In his pursuit of ever more lore, Mephistopheles combines his prodigious intellect with his obsessive nature. This combination of traits enables him to delve far more deeply into a topic than most ordinary wizards can even conceive. Even the tiniest of trivialities is fascinating to him. Here and there, tucked away in Cania's terrible environment, and similarly buried in the immense bureaucracy of the Hells, stand long isolated citadels occupied by sages and spellcasters, toiling away at some seemingly forgotten endeavor. The walls of Mephistar ripple in illusion, and the ice melts to reveal a chamber of red light. Mephistopheles sits alone, a prince in disarray. He paces across a hall of scorched crystal, his steps melting frost with every stride. He speaks in riddles and soliloquies, addressing no one and everyone. To some, his voice would sound measured, controlled, but I see deeper. I feel the fracture lines behind his eyes. It is mine. It has always been mine. The throne below, the pit beneath all thrones. Then, the mask cracks. The vision turns violent. His composure collapses, replaced by screaming fury. His hands claw at his face, blackened nails raking down skin that instantly heals, only to be torn again. Fire erupts in the room, twisting into serpents of molten script. Tomes explode into ash. Servants vanish in flame, burned without ever being seen. Magic seethes from his body in violent pulses, burning sigils, fractal chains of planar geometry, and tongues of flame that write secrets I barely comprehend. He shrieks names: Disparter, traitor, Geryon, fool, Mammon, pathetic, Asmodeus, always Asmodeus, spoken with venomous awe, and then silence. His fury passes, and with it, the vision cools. He looks up, and in the mirror of illusion I have crafted, he sees himself, regal again, polished, measured, the devilish storm hidden beneath layers of charm and civility. He allows me to live, Mephistopheles whispers to the cold stone, because he wants to see if I can reach him. He dares me to descend, then climb the spire to his throne in violence. He tests the shape of my ambition. I dare not speak, but the connection between our minds is open. He feels my thoughts, and so he replies not with words, but with sensations. Hot and terrible, like a dagger pressed to my soul. You will help me find the path he cannot see. I nod by necessity, and the vision fades. As the heat of memory dissolves, I collapse to one knee. Mephistopheles stands behind me now, real and silent, a devil of vast contradictions. His shadow pools around me like liquid ink. Write it down, Solvra, every word, every tremor. So I do. I record the fury behind the crown, the truth behind the prince. I write it in ash and flame, and I wait for the next vision, for the next chance to peel back the layers of his infernal mind and uncover the path of his that leads to Nessus. Because if I do, I might yet rewrite my own fate. The citadel vanishes. In its place, the endless ruins of Maladomini, where cities collapse under the weight of their own lies. A landscape of unfinished grandeur and sinking ambition. At its center, Beelzebul, slithering, decaying, regal in form and revolting in spirit, the Lord of Lies, his bloated figure adorned in tarnished gold, crowned with flies of thought and rot. His mouth moves, but a dozen lies tumble out at once, each contradicting the next. Every word is a trap, every truth a poisoned blade spoken, and behind him, in shadow and smoke, paces Mephistopheles. I would rather share a throne with Asmodeus than a table with that loathsome, dribbling worm, he snarls, not to Beelzebul directly, but into the vision itself, his words branding the air. The illusion fractures. One moment Beelzebul is towering and cruel, the next he is writhing, defeated, dragged through the sludge of his own domain. Mephistopheles is imagining the outcomes, replaying 1,000 futures where his rival dies in fire, or falls in shame, or drowns in his own deceit. He breathes mockery into every effort of his, opposes for opposition's sake. He binds the tongues of my spies, turns my agents to ruin, poisons even my thoughts with doubt. The illusion ripples again. Beelzebul's face now overlays the walls of Mephistar, his laughter echoing from the icy shards. His voice crawls into my ears, 1,000 denials, 100 counterplots, each laced with half-truths. And then, heat. In the fantasy he conjures, he tears the Lord of Lies apart, deceit by deceit, claw by claw. The ice melts around us, the floor glows red. This is not simply a hatred of his, it is his obsession. Then I feel it, the source of his distraction. Asmodeus. I cannot see the Lord of the Ninth in this vision, but I sense him, high, distant, amused, a figure of untouchable commandment. So long as that slug lives, my attention is split. Mephistopheles murmurs through the connection. He keeps me reaching upward to the layer above, clawing at his filth, when I should be gazing downward, toward Nessus. I shiver, not from the cold of Cania, but my thoughts now weaving together, forming an understanding of the torment and hatred that lies before me. He cannot reach Asmodeus so long as Beelzebul lives, and Asmodeus knows it. This is the chain, the trap, the cruel brilliance of the Lord of the Ninth. To leave the ambitious tangled in lesser wars, too consumed with enemies beside them to rise against the true tyrant above. The vision fades. The scriptorium reasserts itself around me. Cracks of cooled lava. The low groan of a moving glacier. The scent of brimstone thick in my throat. Mephistopheles breathes behind me, slow, heavy, focused. Write it, Solvra. And I do. I etch it into metal, spell-carved and flame-branded, the record of enmity. The truth of his obsession. The vision of an archdevil shackled by his own vengeance. The illusion takes longer this time. Mephistopheles' thoughts are heavy. The vision pulses through our mental link like magma struggling to breach a frozen crust. I hold my focus with trembling hands, drawing on the last of my prepared spells. The weave between us is taut. Then, a revelation. I see them. Legions of ice devils arrayed like glacial spears across the expanse of Cania. Rank upon rank of gleaming blue carapace, halberds glowing with frost-rune enchantments. Beyond them, towers of ice rise like blades from the glacier Nagus. These are zealots, bound to Mephistopheles, not by love, but by awe. Every devil, be it Barbazu with rusted glaives, Cornagons swinging flame whips, or pit fiends radiating dread, bears a sigil on their armor, a stylized flame encased in a cage of ice, his mark. Mephistopheles stands atop a platform of frozen iron, arms raised. They believe I am chained, he whispers across the tether between our minds. But who holds the key to Nessus? And then the vision shifts. I see the gate, the only known portal into Nessus, the ninth and final layer of Bartor, a monolith veined with a crimson acquiesced light, sealed in an eternal frost. No devil passes through without Mephistopheles' permission within the vision. No legion enters without his oversight, a true master of the passage. But why? He guards Asmodeus's door, and with each passing century, he learns his weaknesses. I see how it pulses, he murmurs, how he uses the souls. I know what offerings he requires, and one day, I will twist him open and take what is mine. The scene darkens, the cold recedes, and then the hellfire comes. It is unlike any magic I've ever felt. I struggle to maintain the spell as Mephistopheles raises his hand and summons a sphere of molten black light that burns without smoke, without sound. Hellfire, the essence of Bator, refined and weaponized. Where fire sears flesh, hellfire erases it, whether that be souls, identities, or the layers themselves. Asmodeus gave me this icy domain, Mephistopheles says aloud, now standing physically behind me. His voice crackles like embers in a snowstorm. But I forged my own flame, and with it I will gain back what is mine. He knows I am coming, for even in his egotistic arrogance, he can't deny one fact, that he needs me. In the illusion, a single strand of hellfire lashes out, touching the gate to Nessus. It screams. I fall to my knees, blood in my throat. The illusion collapses. Mephistar reforms. The heat is unbearable. Frost from the outer walls sizzles into a delicate mist. Mephistopheles says nothing, but I feel his pride, his quiet, relentless certainty, and I write it down. I burn every line into slate and memory. The gate, the hellfire, the army poised at the edge of the ninth. He guards Asmodeus's realm, and he is learning how to open it, to take back what he sees as his by right. He rises and turns to be, pure confidence within his voice. I am the power that negates, and rightly so, for all souls that come to be, deserve to perish wretchedly. 'Twere better nothing would begin in that pathetic world. Thus, everything, mortals' terms, their sins, destructions, and evil will bow before me, and I will be its representation. For that is my proper form, and through that desire, my future hell will conform. They will name their terms, and I'll name my price.